What's up, everybody? BigSweetC here with you. Got a special little video for you. Today, I kind of want to take a step outside of the video game world, just a touch, a smidge, a hair. I'm assuming most of you guys have at least heard of, if not outright know, the Twitch streamer Pokimane. She's kind of a big name in the Twitch world, and she's been causing a little bit of an uprising as of late. She mentioned something, I don't know if it was one of her streams or maybe it was an interview. To be honest with you, I don't know a whole lot about Pokimane, nor do I watch her content in really any way, shape, or form. But this came across my my radar when I was watching through the quartering stuff, and he brought up this video. Apparently, she went out and said that capitalism causes psychotic behavior, and a lot of people jumped on her about this because she's a famous streamer who makes their money thanks to capitalism. Now, we'll get into kind of why I think that's a little overtly kind of, ignorant in itself in a second, but she's not the only one that's brought this up. So she's, people also reference Nico Lull, the OK Boomer girl. Again, I don't watch these people, so I don't really know anything about their content. They brought up Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I know Pokimane and AOC did a co-stream of Among Us one time, and I'm sure they probably talked about nothing of importance through that entire stream, however long it was. I have no idea. I didn't bother watching it. I had no interest in it whatsoever. And the only reason that I'm actually talking about this is because of the reaction to her saying such a thing. Now, to kind of get into this idea that, capitalism is the reason that she is the way, can live the lifestyle that she lives, that is somewhat true. Now, I say somewhat true because we have plenty of socialist countries out there that also will allow these people, YouTubers, Twitch streamers, to be very successful and earn tons and tons of money. PewDiePie, I believe, is from like Sweden or the Netherlands or somewhere to that effect. That's a socialistic country, and he's probably the biggest YouTuber in the world. India is a socialistic country. They're a capitalist socialist country. So they're a little different than, say, the Dutchland countries, the Norwegian countries, if you will, where PewDiePie is from. But there's plenty of examples out there. The UK is very socialistic in a lot of aspects. They have a ton of super rich athletes, like Messi. Cristiano Ronaldo, I think, is the richest athlete in the world. But they live in these places that are not as capitalistic dominant as the United States. So this idea that it's strictly because of capitalism that Pokimane can be who she is and live the lifestyle that she is a complete fabrication. She puts out content and people deem it worth spending money on. It seems pretty legitimate to me either way. Now, we can have discussions on whether she's adequately adequately funded for what she does. You can bicker back and forth about that, but you can bicker and back and forth about everybody. Aaron Rodgers makes like $20 million a year. Does anybody, even somebody as as talented at the sport of football as Aaron Rodgers, does he deserve $20 million a year? Tom Brady's got 6 more Super Bowl trophies than he does, but Aaron Rodgers still makes more money. So again, you can bicker back and forth however you want about, is compensation duly noted. On the flip side, there's a lot of people out there that are making minimum wage, and we know that there's not a single place in the United States that minimum wage can afford adequate living. Meaning you don't live paycheck to paycheck. You're not making sure that you only pay these bills on this paycheck so you can afford to pay those bills on that paycheck, and you don't have any money to save or purchase a new gaming system or a new video game for that matter. There's no place in the United States that minimum wage can afford that lifestyle. So on both sides, you have people that are exploited one way or the other. You're either exploited or exploitative. This is kind of what leads me into where I actually agree with Pokimane, that capitalism does inevitably incentivize this psychopathic behavior. But it's on a much bigger scale than a lot of these people are talking about. A successful person here, a successful person there does not equate the systemic issues that capitalism brings. So before we get too far, what is capitalism? It's an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. Meaning, usually things that are owned by the state are non-profit. They pay just enough to pay their employees and keep up with the costs of doing business. Electricity to keep the lights on. Internet bill to send out emails. And then again, everybody's paycheck, right? Everybody should be afforded money for the labor that they produce. Now, I've already explained that our minimum wage here in this country is not enough to adequately say that your labor is given proper compensation, because it's not. We used to have a bunch of unions in this country, and those unions made sure that everybody was paid adequately. But because of the idea of capitalism, this idea that trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit is what encourages this systemic psychopathy. What else do you call it when a company who is so driven by profit that they're willing to screw over half of their workforce so they can ship those jobs overseas to pay people a third of the wage to increase their profit margin? You're literally canning half your crew who's already established that they're at least capable of doing the job. You can them to then retrain people who you can pay less for the same work. On the flip side, take the pandemic, for example. Right now, there are several for-profit vaccine-making companies that are going around spending big dollars lobbying leaders of foreign countries to make sure those leaders never sign on to this idea that third world countries, smaller developing countries, can have access to their vaccine. They are actively fighting against this idea of sharing the information they have, so these developing countries that are most third world and poor have access to make vaccines that they can afford. Those companies did not spend a dime developing the vaccine. That was all funded by American taxpayer money. You and I funded the development of the COVID-19 vaccine. Our government then turned around and gave the rights to those vaccines to these private, for-profit health companies, who then turn around and jack up the price on you and I to buy said vaccine that we've already paid to produce. That is not done by accident. That is done because greedy, psychopathic individuals would rather hoard more to themselves than help the betterment of mankind. We've got ample evidence that people have survived and been cured of AIDS, but yet the only people who have actually succeeded, aka Magic Johnson, are the super rich. Long time ago, the guy who developed the polio vaccine decided to sell the patent for $1. When he was asked why he sold it for $1, he responded, "Would you patent the sun?" Meaning, everybody needs this. This only helps everybody, and in turn, everybody helps each other. Why would I use profit as a motive to help people? Because profit is not about helping people. Profit is about hoarding to yourself at the expense of everybody else. Pokimane is on Twitch. Twitch is owned by Amazon. Amazon's CEO is a man by the name of Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos tried to develop a space company, I guess we'll call it, a space travel company for NASA and the United States government. He was directly competing against Elon Musk's SpaceX. SpaceX won out the awarded contract to work with NASA, but the United States government still felt it necessary to give Jeff Bezos and his company $10 billion in compensation for his time and effort. He then used that $10 billion to turn around and buy MGM for $9 billion. Now, on Twitch, if I stream for 7-8 hours, I earn from Twitch maybe 10 or 15 cents. If you watch one ad, if I get 7 people who watch one ad, that's infinitely more than the 15, maybe 20 cents if I'm lucky, that Twitch is going to pay me for my labor. I have not earned my contract, my Twitch partnership. Twitch still does not feel the need to compensate me for my labor. Amazon, on the other hand, was awarded compensation for their labor with the use of U.S. taxpayer dollars. The only reason that is allowed to happen is because people like Jeff Bezos, who have an ungodly amount of money, spent that money to make sure they get what they want and no one else gets the same benefits. That's what capitalism has led to. Capitalism has led to this idea that enough is never enough. You always have to have more for yourself at the expense of everybody else. What do you call that other than psychopathic behavior? Now, we're not completely capitalistic. GM, Ford, Chrysler, they were all going under. The auto industry took a huge hit. The housing market, these small independent investing companies bought up these giant commercial lending companies and started giving out money, knowing that these loans they were giving out were going to go bad And instead of letting the free market decide what happens to their future, they were given all their money back. They were given you and I's tax-paying money back to them for defrauding us as a society. That is not capitalism. That is not allowing the market to dictate what happens to these for-profit industries. That is socialism. We have what is effectively called socialism for the rich, individual ruggedism for everybody else. So this idea that capitalism is this all-glowing, fascinating, end-all, be-all, glorious economic, political system is a fallacy. It cannot sustain itself because the inherent idea is to hoard more for yourself at the expense of everybody else. Now, again, I don't know Pokimane from Eve. Never met her in my life. I've watched maybe a whole 5 minutes of actual footage from anything she's ever done. So she might be one of these tax-avoiding clowns that has a couple of bank accounts in these tax haven foreign countries. I don't know. But her saying that capitalism leads to these psychotic behaviors is 100% correct. Because if you weren't trying to earn more and more money, then maybe you would be willing to help more people. The idea that people should suffer so you can profit. That's psychopathic behavior in my mind. This idea that people who are incarcerated for non-violent drug crimes because they got caught smoking a joint and now they have to do forced labor on the streets of California because the country allows slave labor if you've gone to prison. So these companies can profit off of that slave labor. That's psychopathic behavior to me. Because now you are not trying to redeem these people. One, these people were non-violent to begin with. They were smoking a joint. Maybe they hit the 8-ball, snorted some coke. Stuff everybody does, rich people specifically do on a daily basis. They're now locked up and forced to do forced labor so private corporations can profit off that forced labor. That is psychopathic behavior. When people like myself, us reasonable, logistic, democratic socialists, talk about the needing to tax the rich, it's not because we're jealous of these people. It's not because we're envious of what they have. It's because the only way to discourage this psychopathic behavior is to hit them where it hurts. In the 1940s and the 1950s, when the United States was on the brink of collapse at the end of World War II, the way the United States got out of the Great Depression and into the radical 60s was by having a 91% top marginal tax rate. Not everybody was taxed 91%. It was a sliding scale. Obviously, those who made less paid less. But studies have shown time and time again that if you tax a corporation or a company or a CEO, if you tax them, they would rather give that money to their employees than the United States government. That is how you help spread out well-compensated labor. If you're not going to pay your employees, you are going to pay for their welfare. The biggest amount of welfare recipients in the country are full-time Walmart employees. Walmart is not paying them. You and I have to pay them because they don't earn enough from their full-time job at Walmart to pay the bills. Again, not because of bad money management, but because there is literally nowhere in the United States that what Walmart pays can afford you a living wage. This idea that because capitalism encourages competition and the free markets decide and they will always do the right thing is a fallacy. There's no further proof than the minimum wage. If the minimum wage had kept up with productivity since the 1950s, minimum wage would be $22.50 an hour. But the idea that these private owners, these for-profit private owners need more money, they have then used what they have to make sure that nothing ever changes and they pay less for your labor and charge you more for their product. That is psychopathic behavior. That is the epitome of hoarding for yourself at the expense of everybody else. Now, regardless of how you feel about this, you have your arguments. I am very, very vehemently against this idea of unfettered capitalism. We've seen numerous countries now that have vastly surpassed the United States in terms of happiness of culture, meaning on a per capita basis, the United States on an individual basis, our happiness level is like 50th in the world. Everybody that's ahead of us has some sort of balance between capitalism and socialism. Even China has rich people. Even Russia has rich people. They are not systemically as capitalistic as the United States, but they still have super rich people. So this idea that capitalism creates wealth is a fallacy. It's not the only thing that creates wealth. What it does do is amplifies and rewards those who believe they deserve more at the expense of everybody else. No way in the world does anyone deserve $1 trillion. Jeff Bezos, worth $1 trillion, makes like $150K a year. He could literally pay every employee in Amazon $100,000 extra this year, and he would still be as rich as he was last year. Instead, you've got employees working 12 hours a day, not taking bathroom breaks, and having to be sent to the emergency room because they don't pay for AC. While this dude makes $150K an hour. More than that. That is psychopathic behavior. Either way, I don't know really where I was going with this. I just kind of got on one of these tirades, but I did want to put in my 2 cents because, again, I am not a Pokimane fan, right? I'm not like a hater or anything like that. It's one of those things where, like, you know, hey, she's a woman, she's a famous streamer, she's going to take all this unsubstantiated hate because of that. I'm trying to open you to this idea that it's not a very good critique. A lot of things you can hate her for. In fact, that I don't think she's all that great at playing video games. Nor do I think she's all that entertaining. I mean, if I did, I'd watch her more often. But I don't. So, I don't. She doesn't play the games that I like. So there's plenty to criticize her about. This is not one of them. And you make yourself look like a dunce when you don't understand what she's talking about. And so I'm here to help you clarify this idea that capitalism is the end-all be-all, because there is better out there. 50 countries prove that there's better out there. Either way, let me know what you guys think. Did you find this a bit over the top for Pokimane, or do you tend to agree that capitalism does lead to that psychopathic behavior? Is she a hypocrite? Is she not a hypocrite? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Either way, that's going to do it for this one. BigSweetC, that's me. Wishing YouTube, that's you. Wonderful day, night, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it might be. As long as you're watching, I'm wishing you a wonderful watching time. If you are having a wonderful watching time, do me that favor. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell. Head on over to Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter. Follow me over there at BigSweetC. Either way, sweetness. Signing off. Peace.